The drama that attracted me the most wasn't the plot, but a fellow netizen asking if there were similar shows. Since the end of this drama, it has been a long time since he watched any other shows, because he got too immersed in it. I was initially curious if this was just an ordinary science fiction drama with such great appeal until I watched it to the end and realized that this drama is indeed different from typical science fiction dramas. So, I thought, should I also narrate this drama in a different way? She lifted the boy's shirt and found that the boy was missing something. The female doctor, after examining him, immediately decided to take him home for scientific research. But since the boy entered the house, the daughter screamed, the son screamed, the husband got angry, the female doctor herself was speechless, yet she still refused to send the boy away. Why was the boy so appealing? Because his appearance was destined to fascinate every scientist. One day ago, he appeared naked in the woods, his body covered in amniotic fluid, his eyes as pure as a baby's. Then he came to the city, curious about everything. Pedestrians avoided him, and then the police arrived. They found out that the boy seemed not to understand others' words and had to take him to a juvenile detention center. Here, they named the boy Kyle. Kyle watched another boy nearby, saw him pick up food and eat it, and he imitated by eating it as well. But the other boy was uncomfortable with this approach to hit him, and although he didn't understand what was happening, he was quickly knocked down, wetting his pants. The instructor saw this was not acceptable, so he called for the female doctor, Nicole. Nicole was very interested in Kyle's situation. Upon greeting each other, Kyle picked up a freshly drawn picture and, to Nicole's surprise, he skillfully reproduced the man and woman he had seen in the woods yesterday, almost like a printer. Following that, Kyle imitated Nicole's expressions, charming her. However, the instructor insisted that Nicole take Kyle home temporarily, leaving Nicole hesitant. With no other choice, the instructor lifted Kyle's shirt to find that his abdomen was strangely flat without a belly button. Nicole was shocked and immediately decided to take him home for scientific research. Upon returning home, an incident occurred as soon as Nicole and Kyle arrived. The daughter came out wrapped in a bathrobe after her shower, only to find a stranger at home, which startled her, causing her to scream and run away. Subsequently, Nicole had to leave for an errand and asked Lori to look after Kyle. Unfortunately, Lori was busy on the phone with her boyfriend and inadvertently allowed Kyle to slip away. Sneaking into the neighbor's house, Kyle was drawn by the beautiful sound of a piano, tears welling up involuntarily in his eyes. Amanda, who was playing the piano, nearly had a heart attack when she turned around, prompting Kyle, who had been shooed out, to hide in the bathtub at home. Just then, Josh returned from school, dropped his backpack, and while tirelessly studying exam questions in the bathroom, he was startled by Kyle in the bathtub. Josh jumped up, pulled up his pants, and ran in a panic, accidentally flinging his study materials out, which his mother found while picking them up. She discovered a comic strip he had hidden inside. Just as the neighbor knocked on the door, Josh narrowly avoided being caught. However, the neighbor came to complain about Kyle but quickly noticed her daughter becoming entranced by Kyle's profound gaze and swiftly dragged her away. The ensuing events were genuinely awkward. When the master of the house, Stephen, returned home, Nicole offered a hug. Kyle observed this and assumed it was a basic human gesture. However, during dinner that evening, Kyle suddenly spoke up.
Yo, let's get some juice down here.
Despite his impolite education in the detention center, everyone was astounded.
Sup? Everyone taking stupid pills around here? Juice me!
Kyle managed to learn to speak in just one day and, to top it off, he recited the sweet nothings Lori had whispered to her boyfriend in front of the whole family. Lori wished she could crawl into a hole and disappear. Kyle had thoroughly offended her. A shocked Josh hurriedly gave Kyle an intelligence test, only to discover that Kyle aced every question. As a result, Nicole took him to the hospital for a checkup. After scanning Kyle's brain, the doctor was completely stunned. Kyle's brain was developed to twice the level of Einstein's. However, no one could tell whether such an active brain was a blessing or a curse. Josh speculated that Kyle might actually be an alien. That night, the parents arranged for Kyle to sleep in the same room as Josh. Josh was not happy about it at all. He felt like his personal space had been completely invaded. Little did they know, Kyle had an even bigger quirk. He didn't need to sleep at all. Late at night, Kyle wandered around the house. Suddenly, he saw Lori sneaking past him. Curious, he followed her and found out that she was secretly heading out to a party. The party was filled with booming music and dancing crowds. Kyle was fascinated by what he saw and even copied others by drinking some alcohol. But it didn't take long before he collapsed and threw up everywhere. At that moment, the police arrived. Since underage drinking is illegal, Everyone scattered in all directions. In his dazed state, Kyle saw Lori being taken away by the police. Not understanding much, he only knew he couldn't let Lori be in danger, so he broke through a window and stood in front of the police. When the officers told him to step aside, he made a face imitating what he thought was the fiercest animal he knew, a rattlesnake. This caused everyone around to burst into laughter. Feeling embarrassed, the police let go of Lori and turned their attention to Kyle instead. Kyle, however, easily snatched the handcuffs away. Furious, the officer pulled out his baton, but not only did he miss his target, Kyle also grabbed the baton and tossed it to the ground. Left with no choice, the police had to retreat in humiliation in front of the crowd. Meanwhile, Kyle safely escorted Lori back home. The next day, Steven was hard at work on an important project. Just as he was about to finish, a spilled drink caused the keyboard to malfunction, and the computer crashed into a blue screen, wiping out an entire day's effort. Kyle, standing nearby, stared at the screen filled with code. Feeling an uncanny sense of familiarity, he walked over to another computer and, with a flurry of rapid typing, miraculously restored the project files. Steven couldn't help but laugh when he saw it. It was incredible. He asked Kyle how he managed to do it, but Kyle simply replied that he didn't know either. When Josh came home from school, he found his room spotless, cleaned up perfectly by Kyle. Even more surprisingly, Kyle had found Josh's cherished study materials. Josh went to Kyle and asked why he did this. Kyle replied, "You said you really wanted to learn this skill." Later, Kyle approached Nicole from behind and hugged her tightly. At first, Nicole thought it was Steven, but when she turned around, she realized it was Kyle. Apparently, Kyle had seen Steven greet her like this before and thought it was the normal way to say hello. Nicole said, "You startled me." Kyle asked, "What does startled mean?" Nicole explained, "Startled means scared." In an instant, Kyle remembered the rattlesnake, the boys who had bullied him at the detention center, the police officer who had hit him, and the people who laughed at him.
Help me. Mom.
When Kyle softly said, "Mom," Nicole's heart melted. She hugged him tightly and vowed to protect him at all costs. At dinner, Nicole mustered up the courage to suggest keeping Kyle in their home. Fortunately, no one objected, as Kyle's kindness had already won everyone over. However, they didn't realize how much trouble Kyle's habits could bring them, chief among them, the fact that Kyle couldn't sleep. Meanwhile, a man had been appearing at Nicole's house multiple times, secretly monitoring Kyle's every move. One day, the man held a stack of files, and the photo on top was of Kyle. Kyle, unable to sleep at night, began practicing martial arts. However, he didn't realize that training the body without internal techniques could have negative consequences. From his eating habits, it was clear those effects were already starting to show. Nicole, however, believed the issue lay in Kyle's brain. She took him to see a doctor. The doctor first examined Kyle's teeth, and to everyone's surprise, Kyle started examining the doctor's teeth in return. Nicole could only smile helplessly. The doctor said it was unbelievable Kyle's teeth were brand new, showing no signs of wear or tear. This meant he had never eaten food before. When the doctor lifted Kyle's shirt, he was stunned. Kyle didn't have a belly button. The doctor immediately turned to Nicole for an explanation. Nicole revealed that she had taken Kyle in just a few days ago. She explained that when she found him, he couldn't speak at all, but within a day, he had learned how to talk. However, he had no memories of his past. Nicole then handed over Kyle's brain scans and MRI results. After looking at them, the doctor admitted that he had never seen a brain as active as Kyle's. With no other options, he prescribed some sleeping pills and sent Kyle home. At that moment, the police arrived at the house. They wanted to help Kyle find his family, but Kyle knew nothing about his past. The police were at a loss and said they had never seen a case of amnesia this severe. That night, after Steven gave Kyle the prescribed medicine, he went to bed. However, the next morning, everyone found Kyle sitting alone on the lawn, staring at the stars all night long. Josh had once told Kyle that he might be an alien, and Kyle took it to heart. Seeing that this couldn't go on, Steven decided to take Kyle out for a run to burn off some energy, hoping it would help him sleep better at night. But as soon as Kyle heard this, he transformed into a marathon runner and quickly disappeared out of sight, leaving Steven far behind. Yet, when nighttime came, Kyle was still wide awake, lying in bed unable to fall asleep. Nicole decided to teach him how to count sheep and stayed by his side for company. The next morning, when Nicole woke up, she found Kyle still counting. He had reached well over 100,000. He had been counting all night long. At that moment, Nicole suddenly remembered that Steven was late for work. She rushed to the bedroom to wake him up, but it was already too late. Steven started complaining to Nicole, blaming her for bringing Kyle into their lives and causing chaos for the entire family. Nicole said, "Just think of it as having a third child." Steven retorted, "No one has a third child this big. He doesn't belong to this family." Nicole quickly tried to comfort him, saying that if Kyle couldn't stay with them, he wouldn't be able to survive. Only then did Steven calm down, but Kyle had overheard every single word. Without saying anything, he quietly left the house. When Nicole saw the empty bed, she was frantic and immediately called the police. However, the police said there wasn't much they could do. Steven spent the entire day searching for Kyle but returned at dusk with no news. Lori felt guilty for having treated Kyle poorly before. Nicole happened to see a drawing Kyle had made and remembered a certain location. She suspected Kyle might have gone there. The family grabbed flashlights and went to the forest where Kyle had first been found. Sure enough, they found Kyle there, standing on a high point, gazing up at the stars.
You're okay. We were so worried.
What are you doing here?
Why'd you come?
I came so my family could find me. I think we just did.
When they brought Kyle back home, Steven gave him a bath. To everyone's surprise, Kyle discovered that the white noise from the radio was incredibly soothing. While listening to it, he lay in his favorite bathtub and finally fell asleep. The family breathed a sigh of relief. But back in the forest where they had found Kyle, a set of human bones was discovered. This was the very spot where Kyle had first appeared. The next day, the police informed Nicole, "The child you adopted might be a murderer." Nicole was shocked. The police explained that they had found skeletal remains in the forest, along with a strange symbol. The location matched where Kyle had been discovered. "That's impossible. The bones are completely skeletal, so the victim must have died a long time ago." The police responded, "No, that's not the case. The body was covered with quicklime, which accelerated its decomposition." The police also extracted muscle tissue from beneath the victim's fingernails. A clear case of murder. Nicole pointed out that Kyle didn't have any wounds on his body, but the police said this didn't rule out the possibility of him being an accomplice. They wanted to question Kyle, but Nicole refused, worried that it would scare him. After the police left, Nicole couldn't help but wonder, could Kyle really be the murderer? She approached Kyle and showed him the mysterious symbol found at the crime scene, asking if it looked familiar. Kyle said he had never seen it before, but was Kyle telling the truth? At dinner, Josh boasted that he had finally passed his exam and asked for a reward despite the fact that it was Kyle who had done the test for him. Lori also claimed she had stayed home all day to look after Kyle, even though she had gone out on a date and left Kyle alone. Hearing these lies, Kyle grew increasingly agitated. His heart raced, and eventually, he blurted out the truth about everything. But instead of gratitude, he was met with complaints from Josh and Lori. Kyle couldn't understand why telling the truth had led to such a reaction. Dejected, he climbed onto the roof, wanting to be alone. Steven joined him on the roof and comforted Kyle, explaining that sometimes lies are told out of kindness. Protecting others with lies isn't the right approach. Meanwhile, Nicole had a heart-to-heart with Lori, and the two quickly made amends. Together, the three of them reconciled. But unexpectedly, their neighbor Amanda soon tested Kyle's honesty in a way he wasn't prepared for. Earlier that day, Kyle had climbed onto the roof to fix an antenna. Instead of using a ladder to come down, he simply jumped off. Amanda happened to be driving by and was so startled that she crashed her car into a trash can. The car, her mother's recently purchased sports car, was scratched. Amanda was terrified. Kyle told her, "Just tell your mom the truth. She won't blame you." Amanda dismissed this, saying, "That's ridiculous. Who would believe someone like you, who just jumps off roofs?" That evening, Amanda confessed to her mother about the car, but as expected, her mother scolded her harshly without listening to any explanation. At that moment, Kyle appeared and told Amanda's mom, "It was my fault. I accidentally damaged the car." Amanda quickly denied it, but Kyle insisted it was his doing, already harboring a bad impression of Kyle. Amanda's mom snapped, "Stay away from my daughter," and walked off. Kyle stood there, stunned. This was the first time he had ever told a lie, and it was because of the special feelings he had for Amanda. That day, Steven brought a newspaper to Nicole. The headline stated that the police had confirmed the exact time of death. For the skeletal remains, it was the very day Kyle had walked out of the forest. Steven couldn't help but worry. Was Kyle really connected to this murder? What the couple didn't realize was that their conversation was being eavesdropped on by the mysterious man who had been secretly watching Kyle. More alarmingly, the man had scratches on the back of his hand, clearly from a struggle. Who was he? And what was his connection to Kyle? That same day, Nicole went to Kyle's room to organize his drawings. She accidentally discovered that when several of his drawings were pieced together, they formed a symbol, the same one found at the crime scene. Meanwhile, Kyle made an extraordinary move to impress Amanda. Even though he didn't know how to swim, he climbed onto a diving platform and leapt into the pool, landing straight into the water. He sank to the bottom, drinking water as he flailed. Amanda jumped in after him and, with an elegant dive, pulled Kyle to safety. It turned out Kyle had dreamed the night before about meeting Amanda in the water. In his dream, he had enjoyed the moment, closing his eyes in bliss until Amanda disappeared. The next day, Kyle's friends took him to a swimming pool, and to his surprise, Amanda was working there as a lifeguard. The people, the setting, it all matched his dream. Without hesitation, he jumped into the water, but he forgot one crucial thing: he didn't know how to swim. Just as Amanda was about to perform CPR, Kyle regained consciousness. Seeing Amanda's face so close to his, Kyle's body reacted involuntarily, drawing shocked and incredulous looks from the onlookers. Amanda hurriedly left, but she wasn't upset. Instead, she came to check on Kyle later, concerned about how he was doing. When Amanda entered Kyle's room, she accidentally noticed the drawings on his desk. To her shock, they were of her. She lifted the top sheet to find even more drawings of herself underneath. Amanda was stunned. Just then, Kyle walked in. Amanda glanced down and saw Kyle holding a boys-only learning magazine. Without saying a word, she quickly left. Kyle thought to himself that he was doomed. But the next day, when he went to the swimming pool, Amanda didn't seem upset at all. She saw Kyle practicing swimming and offered to teach him. Amanda gently placed her hand under Kyle's abdomen to help him float. Her touch felt almost magical, and Kyle instantly grasped the concept of buoyancy. When Amanda returned after grabbing something, she was shocked to see Kyle swimming faster than a fish. She asked, "Have you really never swum before?" Kyle replied, "I swam yesterday." Amanda laughed and said, "What you did yesterday wasn't swimming, it was drinking water." Then, she glanced down and noticed that Kyle didn't have a belly button. She asked, "Why don't you have a belly button?" Kyle said, "I don't know." Kyle took the opportunity to apologize to Amanda. Amanda said, "I wasn't angry, your drawings just brought back memories for me." She then added, "Tomorrow, I'll be home alone. You should come over." The next day, Kyle went to Amanda's house as agreed. Amanda showed him a stack of drawings, explaining that her father had been a painter before he passed away. Kyle's drawings reminded her of him. The two quickly opened up to each other, becoming close friends who could talk about anything. They were only a step away from becoming more than friends. Determined to give Amanda a unique gift, Kyle decided to draw her a special portrait. After spending several hours working on it, the drawing was finally complete. He carefully put it away, planning to give it to Amanda at the evening party and confess his feelings to her. That evening, Kyle was restless with anticipation. After waiting for what felt like an eternity, Amanda finally appeared. She looked stunning and radiant. Just as Kyle was about to speak, a man walked over. It turned out Amanda already had a boyfriend. Heartbroken, Kyle realized he had lost his chance. Kyle was filled with a deep longing to know who he truly was, why he had woken up in the forest, and why he didn't have a belly button. His foster mother Nicole asked a colleague to help hypnotize Kyle. Kyle lay on the couch and, under the guidance of the hypnotist, quickly entered a trance-like state. He returned to the forest where he had first awakened and saw two men fighting. One of them, Tom, ultimately shot and killed the other. Kyle didn't know who the murdered man was, but he recognized Tom and said his name aloud. When Nicole heard the name Tom, she found it hard to believe. She knew Tom, he was a newly appointed community police officer. Nicole speculated that Kyle's subconscious might have used Tom's image as a placeholder. The hypnotist then guided Kyle to delve deeper into older memories. Suddenly, Kyle's state changed, and the hypnotist quickly brought him back to consciousness. Kyle, however, had an extraordinary ability. He could draw anything from his mind with perfect accuracy, like a human printer. This day, when Tom was patrolling the area, foster father Stephen handed him the painting and asked if he knew the person in the painting. Tom was stunned. He then tried to remain calm and asked Kyle if he had mentioned seeing him. Stephen replied that Kyle had not. It was just an image in Kyle's mind. Tom then left reassured, promising to transfer the painting to the police station. Upon returning home, he began making a phone call, and to his surprise, the computer screen displayed images from Stephen's home. Tom had already secretly installed a camera in Stephen's home. It turned out that being a policeman was just his cover identity. His real goal was to get close to Kyle. Meanwhile, Kyle was playing the Ouija board with his friends, while others were asking typical questions like who the most handsome person was. Kyle asked about his own birthday, eliciting sympathetic gazes from the group. Kyle noticed that everyone had a birthday, except him. Despite his friends reminding him that it was just a game, Kyle remained persistent. A miracle occurred as everyone's hands moved involuntarily, eventually revealing the number 78127 clearly. This was not a birthday. What could it mean? Simultaneously, Kyle saw a photo of the man in glasses in the newspaper. The article stated that the white bones found in the woods belonged to him, and his real name was Feldman. This confirmed that the scenes Kyle saw under hypnosis were real. The newspaper revealed that Feldman was a professor at Washington University, specializing in human memory research. To unravel the mystery of his own identity, Kyle decided to have Lori and her boyfriend take him to Washington University to investigate Professor Feldman. In an astonishing twist, Kyle encountered a man who looked exactly like him at the university. Upon locating Feldman's former assistant, Kyle inquired whether she was Feldman's student, to which the assistant replied negatively. The assistant mentioned participating in all of the professor's projects but had never seen Kyle before. Kyle's hopeful expectations were shattered in that moment. He was determined and insisted on trying Professor Feldman's research because Kyle felt that he truly knew Feldman. The assistant allowed Kyle to attempt the research, and a miracle happened. Kyle scored full marks in Feldman's test, an achievement no one had accomplished before. This suggested that the professor must have mentored Kyle. However, the assistant was puzzled. Why hadn't Feldman publicized such remarkable experimental results? At that moment, Kyle accidentally came across a photograph of a person identical to himself. However, he quickly realized it wasn't him as the photo was dated 1985. The assistant couldn't provide much insight as she was also young at that time. Nevertheless, she helped Kyle locate Feldman's former assistant. The sight of Kyle surprised the old assistant. After the initial shock, she revealed that the person was named Adam, Feldman's most outstanding student. The old assistant praised Adam's academic prowess, caring nature toward others, and perpetual thirst for knowledge, qualities that resonated with Kyle. When Kyle inquired about Adam's contact information, the old assistant sadly mentioned that Adam had been missing for 20 years. Disheartened, Kyle was given some personal items left behind by Adam. Among these items was a paper with a mysterious symbol and a series of numbers that had appeared multiple times before. Drawing upon his extensive knowledge, Kyle quickly deduced that it was a set of coordinates. Just then, Steven called, urgently requesting Kyle's return. Nicole had recorded Kyle's hypnosis session, and after studying a strange segment of dialogue for a while, they discovered Kyle repeatedly reciting a series of numbers. Steven realized it was a set of coordinates. Upon searching online, Steven was unsettled to find it led to a top-secret government facility. Hearing of Kyle's investigation at Washington University from Josh, Steven sensed trouble and urgently called for them to return home. However, after hanging up, Kyle had no intention of going back. He was eager to unravel the secrets of his identity. Therefore, he and Declan headed to the location indicated by the coordinates. Kyle knew there might be danger ahead, so he instructed Declan to wait outside while he ventured into the woods alone. Soon, he reached a barbed wire fence and was about to climb over it when suddenly he was yanked down by someone. It was a masked man, and Kyle found himself in a struggle with him. However, he managed to break free and escape. The masked man chased after him, but Kyle disappeared without a trace. Suddenly, Kyle appeared behind him and removed the man's mask, revealing that it was Tom.
What do you want?
Shut up.
Why are you following
Shut
me?
up and listen to me. I'm not gonna hurt you. If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead already.
Like you killed Professor Kern?
He's not the man you thought he was, trust me.
Trust you?
Everything I did was to protect you.
No.
To keep you safe.
Safe from what?
You gotta trust me. You gotta stop asking questions. Forget about the past. Get on with your life. Because if you don't, you're gonna put yourself and you're gonna put Nicole, you're gonna put Steven and Lori and Josh, that whole family in danger.
What are you talking about?
They'll kill you, Kyle. They'll kill all of you.
Kyle!
Now get out of here.
Kyle!
And remember what I told you. Go! And don't ever come back. Go!
Ultimately, for the safety of Steven's family, Kyle chose to follow Tom's orders and remained silent about the day's events, no longer mentioning Feldman and Adam. However, the scene shifted to the interior of the secret department where they observed Kyle on the surveillance footage.
781227. He's alive.
On the other hand, when Kyle returned home, a couple showed up claiming that Kyle was their long-lost son. They explained that Kyle's lack of a belly button was due to a congenital organ disorder that required surgery, resulting in the absence of a belly button. They also mentioned that his habit of sleeping in the bathtub was something he had developed from a young age. They shared more details and presented a photo album containing Kyle's childhood pictures. Kyle looked at his younger self, feeling as if he was looking at a stranger. Finding it hard to believe, he raised the photo to the camera and demanded answers about what was going on. Kyle knew Tom was on the other end of the screen because he had secretly investigated Tom the day before and knew he had been covertly monitoring him. Kyle confronted his biological parents with crucial questions about Professor Feldman and the resemblance between Adam and himself. The bewildered expressions on their faces suggested they were unaware. However, considering Kyle had been missing for 5 years, a lot could have happened in that time. Perhaps only Tom knew the truth. Meanwhile, Nicole's family was slowly coming to terms with the fact that Kyle would be leaving. Despite their evident reluctance, the DNA test results confirmed that Kyle was indeed the couple's child.
I'm not going with them.
Damn straight.
Kyle. Of course we don't want to lose you, but it's not that easy.
They're your family. You're my family. I don't care what the test says, they're strangers to me. How can I go live with them when you're the only family I know?
Kyle found himself in a state of painful confusion, even seeking solace in a church, while the people within the secret organization were planning to make him disappear from the world. It seemed that Kyle's existence was their mistake, implying that they had once killed a version of Kyle. At this moment, Kyle suddenly fainted on his way home, and in his unconscious state, his memories replayed in his mind. This time he witnessed clearly the fight between Feldman and Tom, where Feldman was killed by Tom. Soon, Kyle woke up to the realization that it was Tom who had drugged him. Tom instructed Kyle to stay calm and mentioned that he intended to reveal the truth to Kyle. However, at that moment, assassins from the organization arrived. Swiftly, Kyle managed to dodge the assassins' bullets, but unfortunately, Tom got shot. Kyle exerted all his efforts to help Tom escape, and they got into Tom's car, finally getting rid of another assassin. Tom urged Kyle to leave immediately while he would go back to tend to his wounds. Kyle refused to comply and threatened Tom to reveal all the truth right then and there, or he wouldn't leave. Reluctantly, Tom confessed to Kyle that he was the one who killed Feldman, as Kyle had already figured out. Tom explained that he did it to save Kyle because Feldman had intended to kill him. When Kyle woke up while Tom was disposing of the body, Kyle was sent to juvenile detention shortly after and later adopted by Nicole. This made Tom feel the need to monitor Kyle. Kyle questioned why Feldman wanted to kill him and inquired about the couple who claimed to be his parents. He wondered why he couldn't remember any of his past. Tom's revelations caused a 180-degree shift in Kyle's attitude. He returned home, acknowledged his biological parents, claimed that he remembered everything, and expressed readiness to go home with them, while Kyle's biological parents looked relieved. Nicole's expression seemed somewhat complicated. As Kyle packed his belongings in his room, Nicole entered. She appeared like a mother saying goodbye to a child leaving home, struggling to find the right words. Unbeknownst to others, her heart was filled with deep sorrow. In a blink of an eye, Kyle's biological parents' car was waiting on the roadside, and Kyle bid farewell to everyone with hugs. Steven advised Kyle to be careful, while Nicole requested Kyle to call every day. Kyle agreed to their requests, and as the car drove away, Nicole locked herself in the room, gazing at a family photo, unable to hold back her tears. Meanwhile, Kyle in the car looked deeply saddened. He revealed to his biological parents that they were actors hired by Tom. On that night, Tom informed Kyle that he actually had no memories because it was his first day in this world. Tom instructed Kyle to cooperate with the actors and leave with them to a new place where he would naturally discover the answers. After some time, Kyle finally arrived at his destination. The man in front of him turned out to be Adam, who informed Kyle that they were both clones. Over 20 years ago, Adam had escaped from the mysterious organization to control his own fate. He had since developed his influence under a new identity and had sent Tom as an undercover agent to infiltrate the organization. When the lab discovered that Kyle had lost control, They intended to destroy him. Little did they know that Adam was manipulating Tom and had him intervene to save Kyle. In fact, Kyle not only did not fail but turned out to be the most successful generation of clones. All of this was orchestrated by Adam, as he planned to launch a counterattack against the mysterious organization in his own way, seeking revenge for their unethical experiments. Meanwhile, at the secret base, another subject was nearing completion. Judging by the numbering on the cultivation tank, it appeared to be the latest clone following Kyle, hinting at a potential conflict between the two. With this, the first season's story comes to a conclusion. This series sets itself apart from typical sci-fi shows by not only delving into sci-fi narratives but also by witnessing Kyle's growth in each episode. From his initial identity crisis to gradually integrating into society and discovering his true self, Kyle's journey mirrors the conflicts, complexities, and rewards experienced by others, all converging onto Kyle in the end. This narrative easily engages viewers in their own personal reflections and contemplations on growth. While the commentary may not capture the emotional depth seen in the original footage, I have dedicated effort to the storytelling. As a movie enthusiast, I appreciate your viewership. Until next time,